Another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here. You know, at least in my perception of here, being here. What's happening in the universe as interpreted by me. This, whatever, in here, somewhere. Stuff is happening. Little patterns of electricity flowing around, categorizing, hard, soft, big, small, just putting things in categories and blah, 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 blah. And so, yes, it's drawn conclusions, after 60 years of processing. Yeah, it has some opinions. It has observed some things and recognized their failure over time. You could argue lots of stuff like that. So, the conversation is somewhere going to be about, I'm starting to talk Canadian, anyway, the fact that human beings just aren't raised to think. They're raised to try to run a millisecond faster than somebody else, or to swim faster, or to jump higher, or hit baseballs or whatever, or catch footballs better. But they're not raised to think better, or right, or sensibly, or rationally. None of that seems to be much of a human project. The human race doesn't seem too concerned with having something like the right answer Olympics. Nah, it's not bothered with that. Because they're all full of shit, most of them. They've been raised in religious tripe. Silly little fantasy stories about, their Star Wars, or their Matrixes, or their little heavens, with whatever, some draconian asswipe as a god. Just ludicrous mush. That people are hatched into. So, they're hatched into environments that just ingrain them, just bombard them with bullshit about how everything's made out of gingerbread and, don't step in a crack, what the hell? Just absolute mush, superstitious, archaic, silly nonsense. So, they're not raised to have respect for the truth or getting the right answers. Any answer will do that's convenient, that works, for you. And there just isn't much of this understanding of the fact that the world's a place and it's run by systems and mechanisms, and you need to be aware of all that crap to be able to interact in it in some sort of productive manner. Even the whole idea of getting something out of your life, kids really aren't raised with being told that you really do have an obligation. You're going to have this impact on the world, and your obligation, saying this to a 5-year-old just, I guess, doesn't seem sensible to people. But I don't see how it could be done any other way. What you have to teach your kid is that he's playing here. He's playing a video game, and the outcome of the game is going to decide whether somebody gets electrocuted. All kinds of things are going to be decided by how you play the game that are really not insignificant things. They're real value differences. Put a sack over your kid's head and say, see what it's like to be blind? See how it's not any fun at all? Well, you could cause somebody else to be blind. It's not just the fact that you could end up that way because of your stupid choices, but your stupid choices could lead to somebody else, these consequences. So there's just no real thought. It didn't occur to me till I was, 11 or 12. Really occurred to me. That this idea that there was consequences to what I did. If I did a certain thing, if I won, somebody else had to lose. That the world will be a different place. So, you think about, entering, this is the kind of thing. You buy a stupid raffle ticket at some school fair or something, and you think, I want to win. But then I had this idea in my head, you know, that made me start to inspect things. And so because I realized I was a selfish cunt. And so I started to think about it and I say, well, yeah, but if I win, that means the person who would have won if I didn't win, if I didn't have this ticket, they're not going to have as good a day. You know, and once that starts occurring to you, you know, it's just a chain reaction of recognizing that this is a lot more complicated than what's in it for me, and it's a lot more complicated than, oh, it's just all fun, you know, it's all good. You know, no, there's no all good here. There's, you know, lots of bad, and the bad can happen for really stupid reasons, you know. So now, you know, from my perspective as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, you know, and become quite risk averse, and quite sensibly so, I would argue, you know, you watch things and you're just like, oh man, this is, you know. So I mean, kids, you know, when I was a kid, I did it. You know, you ride your bicycle without your hands on the frickin' handlebars, you know, just, and generally speaking, it works out okay, right? But all you need is that one case where it doesn't work out okay, and it's so bad, you know, where you break your face on the fucking asphalt, or become retarded, or some other, you know. It is kind of funny, right? Because, you know, that wearing a bicycle helmet thing, that seemed like everybody was doing it in the place I used to live. It's like you never saw anybody on a bicycle without their little helmet on. And here you'd never see one. Just never see one. Just nobody. You know, just strange. So obviously not strange. There's probably socioeconomic reasons. Blah, 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 and all that kind of crap. But, you know, it's just a different world. And then just yesterday, you know, one of these things popped up where you're just like, what, you know, what kind of planet are we living on? What kind of civilization do we have? Because there was some guy in his little, you know, way too, you know, too much car, you know, and it's too loud. I mean, it's too fast for any normal street. It's just way too much car. And you're almost saying, why don't they just follow these people? Because they're obviously going to do something stupid. I mean, why else do they have way too much car for the roads that exist? So they're obviously, so the cops should just automatically know as soon as somebody registers one of these cars, they ought to just follow them, because they're going to break the law in any minute now. Well, anyway, so he comes down the street 60 miles an hour, right? You know, at least. You know, and it's a street that has cars on both sides parked. That's, you know, cars can't really pass each other. You know, they have to kind of weave into where there's not a car to be able to pass each other. It's that kind of street. Anyway, so some guy just was walking down the street. He's got 4 kids, 4 girls, you know, range of sizes, year apart kind of thing. Hideous, just disgusting. On little bicycles, right? One of them's even on training wheels. And they just went out into the street, you know, because it's been newly paved and it's nice and smooth and blah, blah, blah. And then this car comes, you know, and it just, dumb luck. I mean, he's following the one with the training wheels, and it was just dumb luck that, you know, the other girls had, you know, they were a little smarter because they're a little bit older, 6, 7, so at least they curved in around one of the cars, and then the little kid on the training wheels just made it, you know, and the guy smushed up against the car, you know, one of the cars, and the guy went zooming by, you know. So it just, you know, you're just saying, what kind of asshole's driving that car? I mean, driving down a street just crowded, you know, just cluttered with, you know, people and stuff, and, you know, who raised this thing? I mean, I wanted to catch him just to interview him, just to see what kind of fucking moron does this. I mean, I did some stupid things in my youth, but you're just saying, how fucking dumb do you have to be? So, you know, just an example of the, you know, the dumbness of the guy having 4 kids, the dumbness of the guy driving way too fast. I mean, it's just all over the place, this fucking gross stupidity. You know, insane risk for nothing, for some whatever it is. I can't even figure out what it is. But all this imposing, right? And then some other assholes on the street were having a birthday party for a 3-year-old, right? And it was all adults at the party. Yeah. And then they did fireworks, right? So they're shooting fireworks over other people's houses. You're just like, you don't think that's rude at all? What if somebody's on chemo or something? What if somebody's just having a really bad day? They got a migraine. They need this shit? I mean, for what? A 3-year-old's birthday. You need fireworks. Anyway, what else? I mean, it's just stuff like that. And then the motorcycles. Motorcycles. They can make motorcycles quiet. There's no law that says motorcycles can't be quiet. They deliberately, they're just overtly, obnoxiously loud. I mean, you can hear it, 2 miles away and still hear it. You can follow exactly where the guy, oh yeah, I guess he's going to Walmart. You can figure out exactly where he's going. And he must know he's making this obnoxious sound. Well, that's the other thing, the 3-year-old party. They got this music way up. And you're saying, I mean, these people shouldn't even be allowed to be parents, right? I mean, they're going to make their kid deaf by 7? I mean, it's just so fucking dumb. And it's like, I can just, I could count the dumb. I mean, I could make a statistical survey of, is there anybody living in this area that has any brains at all? I mean, are they all stupid? I mean, every fucking one of them? It seems so, anyway. So, I mean, it's just, it just does startle you. And you're saying, gee, they can't even do this little bit of reasoning. This tiny bit of don't be a rude fuck thing. They can't do that. I'm not saying I have great social skills or any of that kind of crap, but I obviously don't impose it on anybody. I mean, if this video auto-played on people's computers, then I'd know I'd have to, take out some of the language and this and that and not be so rude. But anyway, I should be, just because it's, it's way past time for me to, grow up and realize there's a little bit of gratification I get from using the poignant language probably isn't worth how much it costs in terms of annoying some people. But then you could say that about every fucking thing I do, the hair, everything. Anyway, we'll slide past that part. I mean, the point isn't just to ridicule. The point is that there's just people don't think about anything. I mean, they're not trained to be obligated to think, to recognize, again, that every single thing you do just about has all these consequences, that everything, every ripple you make in the water is going to rock somebody else's boat. Now, I know they don't teach kids this, because if they did, it would scare the shit out of them, right? I mean, it would be very difficult for you to imagine how you're going to raise somebody who's going to be like you, a reckless asshole, and live a stupid, idiotic life where they make kids and do all this other stuff recklessly. Yeah, you're not going to make that kind of person, okay? So you're not going to make somebody like you, and that's what they want to do, is, make some copy of the moron that they are. So obviously kids aren't educated, and obviously somebody who had any knowledge of risk aversion would already have a problem having kids, especially multiple kids. They wouldn't be stepping into it, because it's kind of obvious. It's like you don't have to be that. You don't have to watch too many news shows to know, or you have to watch some special show to know how ugly people's relationships get, and divorces, and how expensive kids are, and alimony, and all this stuff you're stepping into, potentially. And why you think you're immune would be, you wouldn't be able to logically defend your sense of immunity. Yeah, no way. So anyway, so the real hurdle, I suppose, is that people are raised by morons, and morons don't teach them how to think and how to be a human. they teach them that they have an obligation to be a human, to be productive, to leave the world better than they found it. Just simple kind of ethics. I mean, ethics that don't take much reasoning. It's not too bold and extraordinary a statement. It's not like you're not forcing them to be baptized or jump through some dogmatic hoop. You're just talking about the practical reality that if you win, somebody else doesn't. Now, maybe they don't lose. Maybe it's win-win. If you win, the guy who would have win will be much better off if he doesn't win, so it's very good that you won because he would have ruined his life if he won. I mean, you can imagine those circumstances exist, but obviously that wouldn't be the normal case. Normal case is there's probably somebody else that needs something more than you do. So every time you indulge yourself, you probably can pretty for certain know that you're probably squandering the resources, in the sense that somebody else needed it even more than you did. Okay, somebody else was a little more desperate for those calories or whatever the thing is. Just a fact. And it's just not a pleasant fact. So again, the morons who live based on just chasing dessert, snack food, junk food, they don't bother with this whole, oh, you have to eat some vegetables and you have to be, you have to do this responsible thing to be able to successfully get through your life without making a mess. They just don't have the skills to teach their children because they don't have those skills. They don't know anything about the subject of being human, because they're really just animals. They're just barely using this neural thing for anything, but to figure out how to, game, to play the game, to get what they want. And there's just nothing else to the story. It's just a get what you want story. And there's no other structures, no other features, no other context to the story. Just get what you want. Yeah, so I mean, that's the dismal reality, is the breeders are by definition almost stupid, right? Thoughtless, callous, indifferent, glib, dumb. They're just by definition dumb, because the truth is they never gave it any thought. How their kid's going to die, how their kid's going to live, how their kid's going to be immune, how all these, how am I going to guarantee their boat stays out of somebody else's rippling water, and sinks. They got nothing. They got no power, and so it's obviously a decision. Somebody who has no power would never, unless you're pulling the strings, right? You just wouldn't put the kid on the tightrope. It's just not a sensible thing to do. Unless you think the kid is made out of gingerbread. It's non-consequential whether the cookie falls off the table. I can always make another cookie. You have to have a really dumb, just irrational because it's vacant. There's no facts. You just didn't put any truth in your recipe. There's just no truth in the cartoon picture that people are living in. Their matrix is such a pile of crap. The video game is so stupid in how they've framed it. It's so abstract from the real consequential reality. So anyway, yeah, so that's sort of the burden here is, as much as this is about convincing people, it's, the much quicker way to get to that is to get people to accept that there should be some social rule or some social initiative that we make sure kids do know they have a responsibility, that they do exist in a complex world and a dangerous world, and that they have to engineer their way through it by understanding what risk is and being cognizant, respectful of its existence, and making decisions that aren't too irrational. You know, like, we're all stuck with being somewhat irrational because we're personally involved in our feelings, and we're not personally involved in others. So we have a bias that's kind of hard to overcome. It's easy to ignore feelings you can't feel. It's not easy to ignore ones you will feel. So, you know, and that's always going to get in somebody's way, I think. I think it's really hard to live a life where that doesn't get in your way. That doesn't create any distractions from doing really good thinking. So you can almost understand that there's two games to even athletics. You know, there's the physical game. Got to have the physical skills, the practice on all that stuff. But there's also the head game. You can't let your feelings and your emotions fuck up your game. You can't get camera shy, or you can't be bothered by noises, and you can't be distractible. You know. And so there's lots of people that had the physical, you know, stuff, but they never had the head game, you know. And then there's people that have the head game, but they don't have the physical, you know. Anyway, so I don't know how that exactly connects, but it doesn't really matter. So I could read some comments, but they're all the same shit. You know, the nihilist always shows up, the glib monkey types. You know, with nonsense about how there's no truth and we can't figure out anything, we can't know anything. And then there's some other kind who write, you know, whole big giant, you know, stories, you know, about how complex reality is when, you know, it's just so obvious that it's just meteors banging into things. It's just bumping particles, and that's all it is. And you have enough of them, you can create little places where things get funky, okay, but you can't even call it complex. I mean, I suppose it gets there's more pieces to it, or there's more movement in it, or there's some other thing you can call it, but it's almost not complicated. It's just noisy. I mean, complicated almost gives it too much integrity or something. Like it had, like, you know, like we're very complicated, but they're just complications that were just dribbled in one little extra bit at a time, you know. And so it looks like it's really fancy, but you know, you can still see it. You know, I keep saying it, but you can still see we're fish. You know, we just got the fish parts. You know, all of this stuff, the fingers, they all came from fish. You know, it's you know, there's like the three kinds of life. You know, the bugs are just the crabs and the shrimp and shit, right? So that's what the insects are, the exoskeleton. And then you got the sluggy like things, the snails and shit. And then you got the fish, the thing with the skeleton, with the bones and the, you know, spinal cord. And those are the three things that came out of the ocean and decided to, you know, breathe air for a while. And that's it, you know. It's just, these are just machines. And here we have this thing called intelligence. We have this little bit of extra space, and we have a, you know, it's not so much how big our brain is, it's really what it's devoted to. And so, you know, we can do the language thing, we can do this abstract conceptual thinking thing, you know, we can imagine, you know, in a very elaborate way, you know, using this symbolic language, and reason, and talk, and explain, and do logic, you know, and to recognize patterns and do all that. You know, the dumb animals are also recognizing patterns, but they can't format it properly. You know, so the patterns are just small little patterns. They can't combine the patterns to get a bigger and bigger picture. You know, they just can't zoom in and zoom out very well, where we can. That's the difference. You know, it's not a big difference. It's just a subtle difference. You know, language. So a tiny thing changed in a human's brain from a monkey's brain, 250,000 years ago or whatever, and we became a different kind of animal. It's not like we grew a much bigger brain or did any of that stuff. We just changed a little bit, and you could take that dummy, and if I could go back 200,000 years ago and grab a human being and put him into grammar school and all this kind of stuff, he'd do okay. He'd learn how to be one of us. And you can see that sort of like with primitive tribes, right? I mean, there's nothing, they're not genetically dumb or stupid or uneducated. They're just uneducated. They haven't been brought up to they haven't been exposed to all the thinking that the other tribes did. So they just don't have the technology, the language, and the conceptual understanding. And the facts, they're just short facts, but they're behaving like fundamentally different, doing wacky shit for wacky reasons, and but you can change them really easily. It's not hard to program them into the new game, out of their dumber game. So, but you can't go the other way around very easily. You can't forget that 2 + 2 = 4 once you know it. So, it's hard to go the other way. So, the point is that, there's no doubt about our origins. There's no reasonable doubt. There's no reason for it to even be legal, to be religious. It shouldn't be legal to raise a kid in religion, because it's like raising it in some primitive, stupid, tribal nonsense. It's cruel and it's child abuse. To condition a kid into a fake world and then force it to relearn living in the real world, a better world, a smarter world. It's wrong to teach them 2 + 2 = 7. It's just wrong, evil, even. So I mean, there's all these facts that are just so easy to find and see, and the reason why they're ignored is because people with brains aren't taught that their obligation is to get the best out of this brain, to get it to perform well, and to make sense of the world. That is, sensibly, rationally accept what really exists and play the game you're given. Not the game you wish you had, not the game you want to play, but the game you're actually playing. And to do that well enough that you can get to your grave and have left the place as good as you got it, at least. Not made a mess, not littered, not soiled it. Okay, you didn't poo in somebody else's drinking water, something kind of obvious. You didn't do anything really dumb, rude, and stupid. That's not what you left the world. Was just a bunch of smells and disease and pestilence. So that's and I say once you have that as the agenda, once you're seriously saying there's something at stake here, okay, and I have to get the right answers, and if I get the wrong answers, I'm going to lose the game. So even though I might personally win, I still lose if I understand how the real game works. It isn't about what you have, it's about what you've done. Okay, once they know the real rules, well, then you're going to start realizing all these ways that you can make a mistake that don't have anything to do with what happens to you. It's going to have something to do with what happens to somebody else. And again, decisions like having kids becomes easy because there's all downside and no upside. There's no upside for your effect on the world in terms of it's very unlikely that you're going to do this magical thing of creating the wonder child that the odds are you're going to create somebody who's going to make a mess, and it's going to leave the place dirtier than they found it. And that's just the law of averages. So it's not a good bet that you're not going to leave a good legacy. You're just going to leave a legacy of more morons doing moronic things, more morons driving too fast, more parents who let their kid ride on the street, more just stupid decisions that lead to stupid outcomes. And that'll be your legacy. Mess. So as soon as you do a little thinking, it's easy to understand where you need to minimize with the little things you have to change to prevent big messes. So that's when something like being procreation averse, okay, this is one of the easy fixes I can do. This isn't going to cost me much at all. And it'd probably make my life better, actually, because if I really thought about what it is to have a kid, not only is it unlikely I'm going to make a nice, my kid is going to be good for the world, it's also unlikely that it's going to be good for you to raise one. That the odds are it's going to age you prematurely. It's it's going to make you fat and stupid, and a lot of things it's going to do to you. It's going to distract the hell out of you. It's certainly going to make you. It's going to give you less leisure time to enhance your own function, because you're going to have to spend a lot of time trying to get the thing you created functioning right. Because there's no brain included. Having kids doesn't come with the brain. You have to build it. You have to. It's like there's no batteries. It's that kind of thing. It's just not included. So you have to supply the energy. You have to supply an awful lot of work if you're going to try to make it into something. And grief and suffering and unpleasantness and again measuring all these risks and knowing where you have to draw lines, and the fact is that it's going to be really hard for you to draw any of these lines without worrying about whether you're going to make your kid crippled and disabled, psychologically, because you are trying to make them into something. Something very different than what humans generally are. Idiots. And that's going to be daunting as a task. And it's going to consume, if you're going to do kids right, it's going to consume your function. You're going to be lost in soldering those circuit boards, and spending an awful lot of time doing this redundant labor of just trying to keep this thing working. This simple, it's like keeping the fire burning. So instead of doing something interesting like building a house or doing something, you're going to be stuck, gathering wood and, because it's all going to be kind of baby talk and simple things. And you got to get the kid to learn these simple things. So yeah, your capacity to function better, to be more productive, is also going to be diminished by the fact that you're going to be distracted, with this project, if you take it at all seriously. So lots of reasons. So what this comes down to is religion is the real evil. Fundamentally, that's what. There's only two choices, right? Religious fables are practical facts, and the practical facts all point to what a mess, how dangerous life is, and all the religious nonsense is this big cover-up, like we forgive everything, it doesn't matter, blah 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 blah, heaven, some sort of babble, fairy tale about how it all works out okay. It's part of God's plan, that it takes you 5 years to die in a horrible manner. All this is some sort of, it's all okay. It doesn't matter how much horror there is, how much wasted pain and suffering, how much unnecessary grief because people had stupid notions in their head. Some asshole thought, it makes my penis bigger if I drive 60 miles an hour down a street, you know, where at any moment a little kid can pop out in their little bicycle with their little training wheels. I mean, it was just too stupid. I mean, just so fucking stupid. Should be arrested just for being just too fucking stupid. And yeah, we don't have enough money to put all the too stupids in jail, but you know, I mean, I really wouldn't be that afraid if they made a law and, you know, we just shoot them or something. It doesn't scare me very much. You know, that we have just too stupid rules, and once you break one of the too stupid rules, they just whack you and it's, fuck it. Be done with this nonsense. No point in re-educating. Fuck it. Throw it out. You can't do this right. It's just not, it's hopeless. It means that, you know, not only is the soda machine not capable of producing soda, but the LEDs don't even work. I mean, it's, fuck it. Throw it out. Build a new one. You know, it's like, I don't know. The TV screen is, you know, it's warped and crooked. It's all kinds of, not only does it not work, but even if you could get it to work, it probably can't work very well. So fuck it. You know. So anyway, where was I? Yeah, so, you know, the real religion is the nest, you know, that everybody's raised in almost. And, you know, at least as a background, a net. You know, the safety net from taking life too seriously. You know, oh, I can always resort to a religious perspective. You know, a fantasy story of purpose and function that makes everything okay, no matter what it is. But anyway, you know, and then it's this whole thing of, yeah, I mean, if you don't train, you have to train a brain to be a good brain. I mean, it can't do good reasoning if it doesn't know what it's supposed to be reasoning about, what the logic is. So if it, again, if you don't know trees are opaque, you know, and solid, and you can't run through them, then yeah, you'll be playing the game and you'll be running through trees and, you know, making a mess. And it's like that, if you get those little basic things wrong, you know, environmental truths wrong in a kid, and they don't, you know, you haven't given them the skills to recognize what right and wrong is, or what rational and irrational is, what sensible and stupid is, smart and stupid. If they don't have some real appreciation for the difference between doing something smart and doing something stupid, yeah, then they're, you know, it's pretty hopeless. So, you know, part of this argument has to be that, you know, we need to tighten up, you know, what kids, the environment kids are raised in, and, you know, instead of obligating them to learn their multiplication table or some other kind of spell right, maybe we should, you know, really emphasize that the first thing they got to understand is, you know, they don't live in a video game, and there's a reality, and the reality has in it a lot of stuff that's of questionable purpose and use. Like in the animal world, there's all this, you know, kill 500 kids to have one reach maturity. Now, what asshole would say that's a good idea? So, you know, this obvious stuff that doesn't make any sense. And that's the world we live in. That's the planet we live on. It's not some pretty little blue ball hurling through space. It's a torture chamber where, you know, the welfare of you know, feeling beings is of no consequence to any authority. There's, you know, there's no police. There's no Superman. There's nothing to come to the rescue. And the whole system is basically made out of that as being functional. You know, that makes good evolution. To kill lots of children is really, yeah, it's good for evolution. But it's not good for anything else. Every other category, it fails. You know, X, you know, doesn't work. Non-functional. So yeah, so it's like having a Coke machine that, yeah, it's a very good anchor. You know, if you want to anchor the Queen Mary for a while, just drop the soda machine off the side, you know, let it drag on the bottom a little. Now slow the boat down. But you know, it's not good for anything else. And you know, life is, you know, it's unless you're big on causing a bunch of waste, that's all it's really good at doing. This DNA molecule is just squandering and wasting the very thing it's supposed to be perfecting. You know, the perfected thing is this little tiny grain, you know, and all this stuff wasted is this huge bit. So somebody made a comment like that. They said chaos is the ladder to progress or some kind of crap like that. Yeah, it's the most expensive ladder you could possibly make. You want to make a ladder the most inefficient way possible to make a ladder? Well, yeah, is to take a you know, an almost infinite supply of ladder material and then almost an infinite supply of matter, I mean time, and waste them waiting for chaos, you know, to make a ladder. Because chaos will make everything but first. It'll make every kind of stupid, idiotic thing. It'll waste all these resources. So if people had to actually do chaos to make ladders, right, it would employ zillions of people, okay, having to go to work every day at the chaos ladder factory, and just squander all of that labor. So chaos isn't anything good. It's terrible. It's a terrible manufacturing plan. Chaos. It's the dumbest way to make a ladder. I mean, it's the default stupidest way to make a ladder. And obviously evolution is a really bad way to engineer whatever, robots. Making robots, it makes it the hard way. This is the hard way to make robots. It's just, there's so much waste. So you can go on and on about that context of our existence and all that crap and blah blah blah. So anyway, I might just bail on this video and just say that yes, well, this is the context, and you know, people are already really dumb, and they don't want to know that they're dumb, and they don't want to know that they've lived a stupid life, and they don't want to know they're fat and smelly because of their own actions, their own stupidity. They don't want to hear about how dumb their life was and how stupid their agenda was, and you know, blah 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 blah. They don't want to hear any of that shit, and they certainly don't want to hear that they're stupid. I mean, just stupid, living in a fake world, completely silly and delusional notions of reality. You know, they're just, you know, so childish. But you know, it's the truth, and they don't want to hear it. And so yeah, you have to put it in some form where they can hear it in their private space, you know. So again, you have to sort of trick them. You have to put the medicine in a form where they, you know, they think it's a Bugs Bunny cartoon, but it really isn't. You know, it's not going to be just some, you know, it's not going to be some Punch and Judy just joke thing. It's going to end up with some serious message in the end that's going to, you know, be a knife right in their eyeball. Okay, in terms of it's going to be thoughts that they can't get out of their head, and those thoughts are going to irritate them, and the fact is they're going to realize they've lived a really ignorant and stupid life, reckless, irresponsible, thoughtless, unintelligent, dumb. And you know, so the idea is to hide the insult, which is true. I mean, it's just a fact. You've shit where you shouldn't have shit. Okay, and we've discovered it. We found the shit you hid behind the couch. You know, you took your shit behind the couch and you're pretending you didn't do it, and blah 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 blah. But no, we've found it. We've got videotape of you. We can reconstruct the crime very well, and you're caught. And so that has to be done in some way where they can't just run out of the interrogation room, you know, or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, this is all about how to communicate because the ideas really are so simple. I mean, the truth is so simple in terms of its the big picture of it. It is just trees and grass and sky and mountains. You know, you don't need many elements to draw this picture of what we're doing. You know, robotic machines, you know, unfortunately kind of selfishly motivated because of the design mechanism where I feel my pain, I don't feel yours. So I'm somehow more interested in mine than I am in yours innately. But that's not logical. Your life is just as important. Your welfare, your comfort is just as, you know, as a matter of fact, I can't make some statement that I know for certain my welfare is more important than your welfare. It just isn't a possible logical conclusion. Obviously, you can make arguments that some imbecile's welfare isn't as important. I'm just saying, but you know, you can't do it as some kind of generic statement that you know from just knowing. You have to actually make the argument. You know, so it's a simple game, and this really shouldn't be a difficult conversation for human beings to have. As you know, here we are. We arrive as a new participant, and our obligation is to understand what it is to participate. You know, what are the rules of participation? And one of the rules of participation is getting the truth right so you can be productive, because you're not going to be productive if you think trees are transparent and you think shit is food and all kinds of other stupid things. So you have to get the story right to get your functioning right, to be a good person. And again, if that was just taught to kids, that look, it's your obligation to be a good person, you know. And if you can't figure that out, if the kid can't say, I understand why I can't feed poo to dumber kids than me, you know, or something like that. Like if he's a 6th grader, he knows he can't figure out that he shouldn't, I don't know, you know, whatever, stick a knife in a 3-year-old's head. Well, yeah, you have to kill that kid, you know, forget it. You know, it's too stupid already. So, I mean, this idea of your life having consequences, and the consequences need to be that you, like I said, don't cripple people and don't do stupid, dumb things for stupid and dumb reasons. That's just so basic and you know, I can't see how a kid would fail to get that, frankly. It's only adults that come up with some silly nihilistic rationalizations where they can't figure out that, oh, the other people are just as real as I am. Kids, I don't think a kid would ever fall for that. You know, that they're fake other kids. I think they could understand. But unfortunately, they just think of them as things to compete with. They're never taught that they're not the enemy, that they're not, you know, that it's, you know, but because they sort of subtly are. They do know that if there's only so much cake on the plate, and they do know that there's going to be rules about who gets cake, and they're not going to get any if they don't, you know, play the game hard. You know, they have to, see, that's the games. They do play games like that stupid chair game, you know, where you leave one chair, you keep pulling a chair away, and then one asshole has to be the loser who doesn't have a chair. You know, so we are taught so wrong. We're taught that somehow I need to sit in a chair, but he doesn't. You know, I need to win, he doesn't need to win. And that's just dumb. And I'm not saying competition isn't part of our nature. I'm just saying that the context in which we teach people to be competitive, that's the part that's broken. We don't teach our competitiveness to be one of our vices, you know, one of our hornies. And that's really all it is. And so it's like we're raping, okay, other people with our competitiveness, because we don't understand that there's a context, you know, and there's a truth, and the truth is that we have to satisfy that desire in a sophisticated, civilized way, and the civilized way isn't rape, you know. The civilized way is, yeah, you have to buy flowers, and so you have to go through this process of, go dancing and stuff. If you want to get some, you have to earn it. And so the context is, in living life, it's just not about you winning all the time, and not and that in so many cases you just don't need to win. I don't need to sit down, so I don't need to win musical chairs. Losing isn't all that bad. Sometimes you have to understand that losing isn't all that bad. I guess there's just too much at risk in some cases where people are too possessive, because there is a huge difference between living rich and living poor, and there are huge differences between these things. Having health care, not having health care, all that kind of, huge differences in the quality of your life. So this shit does matter. And it matters enough where people lose sight that they're just playing musical chairs, and they're just deciding to make somebody else a loser. And there's nothing smart in doing that without any thought, because there's better winners and better losers. There's people who don't mind jumping overboard, okay, and there's people who are really need to stay in the boat, and that should be deciding. So anyway, something like that. So I guess I'll leave it there. Yeah, I mean, going through all the minutiae of the individual comments, it's like I said, they always have the same kind of theme: religious nut, spiritual nut, nihilist nut. Yeah, that's about it. Anyway, so till the next time, and such, and so forth, and yeah, try to do something different, and but so I got summer, distracted by a lot of things. I will continue to be aware that I need to do a little better than this, so I will attempt to do that. I did want to mention experimentalist, social experimentalist. What's that his name? Damn, I should remember that. Anyway, Danny Shine did a conversational video with some other anti-natalist. What the hell was it? Well, anyway, and conversations are good and blah blah blah. And so I just thought I'd point to it. He hasn't done much. I mean, lately it's the coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, hysteria, controversy. I mean, it's a very, it's like both sides, again, are wrong. Like, one side wants to pretend it's nothing, and the other side wants to pretend it's everything. And it's like, you're just like, no. I mean, the real truth is, yeah, nobody's immune, so it makes it a little bit messy because everybody has to get sick at once. But it really won't kill more people than the flu kills, which is still bad. I mean, it kills people. That's the truth. I mean, compromised people will die. And some that you didn't know were compromised, I suppose. So it is a real thing, but it's like, there's just nothing rational in between, So, you got people walking around in their freaking, I saw a guy, who's got the face mask and a shield, just walking down the sidewalk. I mean, it's a little bit hysterical, especially in the middle of summer when it's 95 degrees out. There's not much chance, okay, of a virus surviving very far or very long to get to you. But anyway, it's just no point in talking about it, because all there is two versions of stupid and wrong, and there's just so little in between. The rational people, and very few of them. Morons to the left of me and morons to the right of me. So anyway, yeah, sucks. But yeah, idiocracy, we're just so here. I mean, I never really thought we would get there, but we really have gotten there. We are you know, we're doing ludicrous speed in idiocracy. I mean, it just, this boat is so fucking crippled and stupid. There are just too many. I mean, the guy driving the bus is more retarded than the people in the bus. I mean, it's really bad. So anyway, bizarre. I don't even know what to say. It's bizarre. Wouldn't have bet on this as being what the future would have been in 1970. If you asked me what the 2020 would look like, this would not have been close. So anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot.